happens when a feared Apache warrior comes face to face with a dirt-poor country girl who dares to stand up to him? And what if that same girl offers the one thing no one else would? Herself. This story will take you deep into a forgotten part of the Old West, where courage speaks louder than guns, and one bold act of trust could change everything. Thank you so much for watching, and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from, and why you're following this. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the small settlement of Copper Ridge, a modest collection of wooden structures clinging to existence at the edge of Apache territory. The year was 1876, and tension hung in the air like the dust that swirled through the unpaved streets. Emma Hartwell wiped the sweat from her brow as she worked in the modest vegetable garden behind her family's humble cabin, her calloused hands pulling weeds from between the struggling tomato plants. At 19 years old, she had known nothing but hardship since her family had arrived in this unforgiving land 3 years ago, seeking a fresh start after her father's death back in Missouri. Emma's mother had passed away the previous winter from pneumonia, leaving her alone to manage their small plot of land. She was a slender young woman with sun-kissed skin, long auburn hair that she kept braided down her back, and striking green eyes that held a quiet determination. Despite the poverty that surrounded her, there was an undeniable beauty in her features, a natural grace that persisted even through the dirt and exhaustion of frontier life. Her worn cotton dress, faded from countless washings, hung loosely on her frame, testament to the meager meals she could afford. The sound of hoofbeats thundering through the settlement made Emma's heart skip. She dropped her gardening tools and rushed to the front of her cabin, joining the other settlers who were emerging from their homes with expressions of fear and curiosity. A cloud of dust approached from the east, and soon the source became clear: a group of Apache warriors on horseback, their presence commanding immediate attention. At the front of the group rode a man who seemed carved from stone itself. Dakota, whose name meant friend to everyone in a cruel twist of irony, was known throughout the territory as one of the most fearsome Apache warriors. At 26 years old, he sat tall and proud on his painted horse, his powerful physique evident even beneath his traditional Apache clothing. His long black hair flowed freely in the wind, and his face bore the sharp, handsome features of his people: high cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes as dark and penetrating as obsidian. His bare chest, marked with the scars of previous battles, displayed the muscular build of a man who had trained as a warrior since childhood. He wore buckskin leggings and moccasins, with a leather band around his forehead and traditional Apache jewelry adorning his arms. The warriors came to a halt in the center of the settlement, their horses snorting and stamping impatiently. The settlement's unofficial leader, James Crawford, a portly merchant who ran the general store, stepped forward with visible reluctance. His hands trembled slightly as he raised them in a gesture of peace. "We want no trouble," Crawford called out, his voice cracking slightly. "We have an agreement with your people. We stay on our land. You stay on yours." Dakota's expression remained impassive as he surveyed the frightened settlers. When he spoke, his English was accented but clear, learned through years of necessary interaction with the white settlers who continued to encroach on Apache territory. "Your people broke agreement. 3 days ago, white men came to our land. They shot at our hunters, killed one of our young warriors, a boy of 16 summers." Crawford's face paled. "That wasn't us. We had nothing to do with that. It must have been drifters, outlaws passing through. We can't control what other white men do." "You are all the same," Dakota replied coldly, his hand resting on the knife at his belt. "Your people take and take, promise peace, then break promises. Why should we believe your words now?" Emma felt her heart pounding in her chest as she watched the exchange. She could see the rage simmering beneath Dakota's controlled exterior, could sense how close the situation was to erupting into violence. The other warriors behind him sat ready, their faces hard and unforgiving. She knew what would happen if this confrontation escalated. Her small settlement had no real defenses, no soldiers stationed nearby. They would be slaughtered. Before she could think better of it, Emma found herself stepping forward, her worn boots kicking up small clouds of dust as she moved past Crawford. The merchant reached out to grab her arm, but she shook him off, continuing until she stood alone in the space between the settlers and the Apache warriors. Please, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. Please listen to me. Takota's dark eyes fixed on her, and she felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. His expression showed surprise for just a moment, before returning to its stony mask. Who are you, girl? Go back to your people before you get hurt. My name is Emma Hartwell, she said, lifting her chin slightly. And I'm asking you to hear me out. I know you have every right to be angry. I know our people have done terrible things to yours, but these people here, in this settlement, we're not your enemy. We're just trying to survive, same as you. One of the warriors behind Takota said something in Apache, and several of them laughed harshly. Takota himself showed the hint of a smile, though there was no warmth in it. Survive? He repeated. You speak of survival to me. My people have survived on this land for generations beyond counting. Your people arrived like locusts, taking what is not yours, killing our buffalo, poisoning our water. And now you speak to me of survival? Emma felt her cheeks flush, but she held her ground. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I can't change what's been done. But killing us won't bring back the boy who died. It won't undo the wrongs that have been committed. It will only create more death, more pain, more reasons for our peoples to hate each other. Takota's horse shifted beneath him, and he controlled the animal with effortless ease. He leaned forward slightly in his saddle, studying Emma with an intensity that made her feel exposed. What do you know of pain, white girl? You stand there in your shabby dress in your dirt-poor settlement and you think you understand. I know that I buried my mother alone this past winter, Emma replied, her voice catching slightly. I know what it's like to be hungry, to be afraid, to wonder if I'll survive another season. I know what it's like to be looked down upon, dismissed, treated as if I don't matter. Maybe I don't understand exactly what your people have suffered, but I understand pain. I understand loss. For a long moment, Takota was silent. The wind whispered through the settlement, carrying with it the scent of creosote and dust. Finally, he spoke again, his tone slightly less harsh. You are brave, I will give you that. Foolish, but brave. What is it you want from me, Emma Hartwell? I want you to give us a chance to prove that we can live in peace, Emma said. I want you to trust me when I say that we will find out who killed your warrior and make sure they face justice. We'll work with your people, share what little we have. But please, don't punish innocent people for the crimes of others. Takota threw his head back and laughed, a sound that held no joy. The other warriors joined in, their laughter echoing through the settlement. When he looked at Emma again, his eyes glittered with something between amusement and disbelief. You want me to trust you? A poor white girl from a dying settlement? You must trust me, you say. He laughed again. Why would I trust any white person? Your people's word means nothing. Emma felt desperation rising in her chest. She took another step forward, close enough now that she could have reached out and touched Takota's horse. Because I'm willing to prove it to you. Let me come with you, to your camp. Keep me as your guarantee. If anything happens, if more of your people are harmed by settlers from Copper Ridge, then you can do what you will with me. But give these people a chance. The laughter died instantly. Takota's expression hardened into something dangerous. You would offer yourself as hostage? Do you have any idea what you're suggesting, girl? I know exactly what I'm suggesting, Emma replied, though her hands were shaking now. I'm suggesting that someone needs to be willing to take a risk for peace. I'm suggesting that trust has to start somewhere, even if it seems impossible. Crawford rushed forward, his face red with agitation. Miss Hartwell, you can't be serious. You don't know what you're saying. These are savages. They'll what? Emma turned to face him sharply. Kill me? We're all going to die right here, right now, if something doesn't change. At least this way, the rest of you have a chance. Takota watched this exchange with keen interest. When Emma turned back to face him, he studied her for another long moment before making a decision. He spoke rapidly in Apache to his warriors, and Emma could hear the surprise and disagreement in their responses. But Takota's voice rose above theirs, commanding and firm, and gradually they fell silent. Very well, Emma Hartwell, Takota said finally. You say you want me to trust you. You say you will prove your people can live in peace. I will take you to my camp. You will stay with my people for 1 moon. If, in that time, there are no more attacks on my warriors, no more broken promises, then perhaps there is a small chance for peace. But if your people betray this agreement—" He left the threat unfinished, but the meaning was clear. Emma nodded, trying to keep her expression calm even as fear and uncertainty churned in her stomach. "I understand. I accept your terms." "You're insane," Crawford sputtered. "You can't just go off with them. What about your property, your mother's things?" "Give them to whoever needs them," Emma said softly. "I don't have much anyway." She turned to look at the other settlers who had gathered, seeing fear and confusion on their faces. "Please, all of you, honor this agreement. No violence. No retaliation. Give peace a chance." Dakota reached down from his horse, extending his arm to her. "Come then, brave fool. Let us see if your courage lasts beyond this moment." Emma grasped his forearm, feeling the strength in his grip as he pulled her up effortlessly behind him on the horse. She wrapped her arms around his waist, feeling the heat of his skin, the solid muscle beneath. His hair whipped back against her face as he wheeled the horse around. "Remember," Dakota called out to the settlers, "one moon. Any attack on my people and the girl pays the price." With that he spurred his horse forward, and the group of warriors thundered out of Copper Ridge, leaving behind a cloud of dust and a settlement full of frightened, bewildered people. As they rode hard across the desert landscape, Emma held tight to Dakota, her heart pounding with fear and strange exhilaration. She had no idea what awaited her in the Apache camp, no guarantee that her gamble would pay off, but she had meant what she said. Trust had to start somewhere, and as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Emma Hartwell rode toward an uncertain future, hoping against hope that her courage would be enough to bridge the divide between two peoples at war. The Apache camp sprawled across a sheltered valley, nestled between red rock formations that glowed like fire in the fading sunlight. As they rode in, Emma could see dozens of traditional wickiups, dome-shaped dwellings constructed from wooden frames covered with brush and hides. Women looked up from their work, children stopped their playing, and warriors emerged from their shelters to watch the unusual sight of a white woman being brought into their midst. Dakota dismounted with fluid grace and reached up to help Emma down. Her legs trembled slightly as her feet touched the ground. Whether from the long ride or from fear, she couldn't say. She was acutely aware of the hostile stares directed at her, the whispered words in Apache that she couldn't understand but whose tone made their meaning clear enough. An elderly woman with silver-streaked hair and a face lined with years of wisdom approached them. She spoke rapidly to Dakota in Apache, her expression stern and questioning. Dakota responded in their language, gesturing to Emma. The old woman's eyes narrowed as she looked Emma up and down. Then she shook her head disapprovingly before walking away. "That was Nalnish, one of our elders," Dakota explained, his tone neutral. "She thinks I am foolish for bringing you here. She says you are a trick, that your people will use this to learn about our camp and attack us." Emma swallowed hard. "And what do you think?" Dakota's dark eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I think you are either very brave or very stupid, perhaps both, but I gave my word, and unlike your people, Apache warriors do not break their promises." He paused, then added, "You will stay in my wickiup where I can watch you. Do not think this means you are safe. One wrong move, one hint of betrayal, and your life is forfeit. Do you understand?" "I understand," Emma replied quietly. Dakota's wickiup was larger than most of the others, befitting his status as a respected warrior. Inside, it was surprisingly comfortable, with woven mats on the ground, several beautifully crafted baskets, and various weapons arranged neatly along the curved walls. Animal hides served as blankets, and a small fire pit sat in the center, its smoke escaping through an opening at the top. "You will sleep there," Dakota indicated a spot near the wall. "I will sleep here between you and the entrance. If you try to escape, you will not get far." Over the next few days, Emma learned the rhythms of Apache life. She woke before dawn with the rest of the camp, and despite being a hostage, she insisted on making herself useful. At first, the Apache women wanted nothing to do with her, turning their backs when she approached, refusing to speak to her even when she attempted to help with their tasks. But Emma was persistent. She had grown up doing hard work, and she wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. When she saw women hauling water from the nearby stream, she picked up a clay vessel and joined them, saying nothing, simply working alongside them. When she noticed women grinding corn into meal, she knelt beside them and began to help, learning by watching and imitating their motions. Slowly, grudgingly, some of the women began to soften toward her. A young woman named Ayana, whose name meant eternal blossom, was the first to speak to her in broken English. She was perhaps a year or two younger than Emma, with a round face and kind eyes. "Why you here?" Ayana asked one afternoon as they worked together scraping an animal hide. "Why you come with warriors? You not afraid?" Emma paused in her work, considering her answer carefully. "I am afraid," she admitted, "but I'm more afraid of what happens if our peoples keep killing each other. Someone had to try to build a bridge. I thought maybe I could be that bridge." Ayana looked at her with something like understanding in her eyes. "You are a strange white woman," she said, but there was a hint of a smile on her lips. Dakota watched these interactions from a distance, his expression unreadable. In the evenings when they returned to his wiki-up, he would question her about her life, her people, her motivations. At first his questions felt like interrogations, but gradually, their conversations began to shift into something different. "Tell me about your mother," he said one night as they sat by the small fire. The flickering light cast shadows across his handsome features, softening the hard edges slightly. Emma felt the familiar ache in her chest at the mention of her mother. "She was strong," she said softly. "Even when we had nothing, even when we were hungry and cold, she never gave up. She taught me that the measure of a person isn't in what they have, but in how they treat others, especially those who have less than they do." Dakota was silent for a moment, staring into the flames. "My mother died when I was 12 summers old," he said finally. "Killed by white soldiers who attacked our camp. They said we had stolen cattle. We had not, but that did not matter to them. They came at dawn, shot anyone who moved. My mother was trying to protect my younger sister." His jaw clenched. "I became a warrior that day, even though I was still a boy. I swore I would never let white men hurt my people again." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Dakota. There are no words for how terrible that is." He looked at her sharply. "Do not pity me, white girl. I do not need your pity." "It's not pity," Emma said firmly. "It's sorrow. Sorrow that the world can be so cruel, that people can be so hateful. My sorrow doesn't diminish your pain or make what happened any less terrible. It just means I wish it hadn't happened." Something flickered in Dakota's eyes, surprise, perhaps, or a momentary crack in his armor. He looked away, back to the fire. "You are not like other white people I have known," he said quietly. As the days passed, Emma found herself drawn to Dakota in ways she hadn't expected. She watched him train with the younger warriors, his movements precise and powerful, his body moving with the grace of a natural predator. She saw the respect his people had for him, the way they sought his counsel, trusted his judgment. She also saw glimpses of something beneath the hardened warrior exterior, moments of gentleness when he spoke to the children, a flash of humor when he joked with his fellow warriors, a deep wisdom in the way he settled disputes. And Dakota, despite himself, found his perception of Emma changing. He had expected her to break, to beg to return to her people, to show the weakness he had seen in so many white settlers. Instead, she worked harder than anyone, never complained, treated his people with genuine respect. More than that, when she looked at him, he didn't see the fear or hatred he was accustomed to seeing in white faces. He saw something else entirely, understanding, curiosity, and something warmer that made him feel unsettled in a way he hadn't experienced before. 2 weeks into Emma's stay, a commotion arose in the camp. A group of Apache hunters returned with news. They had spotted a band of white men heading toward Apache territory, heavily armed and looking for trouble. The camp erupted into urgent activity, warriors gathering their weapons, preparing for a potential attack. Dakota immediately went to his wiki-up, where Emma was grinding cornmeal. His expression was grave. "White men are coming. Armed. This is what I feared would happen." Emma stood quickly, her heart racing. "Are you sure they're from Copper Ridge? Maybe they're the same outlaws who killed your warrior before. Does it matter?" Dakota's voice was hard. They are your people. You promised me peace. Please, Emma said urgently, grabbing his arm. Please let me go to them. Let me find out who they are and what they want. If they're from my settlement, I'll convince them to turn back. If they're outlaws, then your warriors can deal with them however you see fit. But don't assume the worst until we know for certain. Dakota stared at her, conflict evident in his eyes. If I let you go to them, you could escape. Return to your people and never come back. Emma met his gaze steadily. I could, but I won't. I gave you my word, Dakota, just like you gave yours. Let me prove that my word means something. After a long moment, Dakota made his decision. Very well, but I go with you. And if this is a trap, Emma Hartwell, you will be the first to die. They rode out together, Dakota and 4 of his warriors, with Emma mounted behind Dakota once again. As they approached the area where the white men had been spotted, Emma felt her stomach twist with anxiety. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. The group of white men, 6 of them, were indeed heavily armed, carrying rifles and revolvers. But as they drew closer, Emma's heart sank. She recognized one of them, a drifter named Jack Sutter, who had passed through Copper Ridge several times, always causing trouble, always looking for a fight. That's them, one of the men shouted when he saw the Apache warriors. Told you we'd find some of these savages out here. Wait, Emma called out, sliding down from Dakota's horse before he could stop her. She ran forward, placing herself between the 2 groups. Stop, don't shoot. Sutter's eyes widened in surprise when he recognized her. Emma Hartwell? What in the hell are you doing with these Indians? I'm trying to prevent a war, Emma said firmly. And you need to turn around and leave Apache territory immediately. You have no business being here. One of the other men, a rough-looking character with a scarred face, sneered at her. Since when do we take orders from some dirt-poor farm girl? These savages need to be taught a lesson. They've been raiding our lands, stealing our livestock. That's a lie, Emma interrupted. The Apache haven't raided anyone. You're just looking for an excuse to start trouble. I know you, Sutter. You don't care about peace or justice. You just want to kill and steal under the guise of protecting white settlers. Sutter's face darkened. You've gone native, haven't you? Forgotten which side you're supposed to be on. Well, we don't need permission from the likes of you. He raised his rifle, aiming it directly at Dakota. Everything seemed to happen at once. Emma screamed and threw herself forward. The rifle discharged with a deafening crack. Emma felt a searing pain in her left shoulder as the bullet grazed her, spinning her around and sending her crashing to the ground. Dakota was off his horse in an instant, his powerful body moving with lethal speed. But instead of attacking Sutter, he dropped to his knees beside Emma, his hands hovering over her wound, his face transformed by an expression of pure anguish that shocked even his own warriors. Emma. His voice was raw, desperate. Emma, look at me. Emma's vision swam, pain radiating through her shoulder, but she could see Dakota's face above her, could see the fear in his eyes, the way his hands shook as he pressed them against her wound to staunch the bleeding. In that moment she understood, and so did he, that something profound had changed between them. The Apache warriors had their weapons trained on Sutter and his men, who suddenly looked far less confident. Sutter's face had gone pale, realizing what he had done. You shot her, Dakota said, his voice deadly quiet. You shot a white woman trying to protect us, your own people. One of Dakota's warriors, a fierce-looking man named Cayley, moved forward with his weapon raised, ready to strike down Sutter and his companions. But Dakota held up his hand, stopping him. His eyes never left Emma's face as he spoke in Apache, his voice carrying absolute authority. The warriors hesitated, then slowly lowered their weapons, though their expressions remained hostile. You will take your men and leave this territory, Dakota said to Sutter, his voice cold and controlled despite the rage burning in his eyes. You will return to wherever you came from, and you will never set foot on Apache land again. If I see your face after this day, I will kill you slowly and painfully. Do you understand? Sutter nodded frantically, his bravado completely evaporated. Yes, we're going. We didn't mean... Go! Dakota roared, and the men scattered, scrambling onto their horses and riding away as fast as their mounts could carry them. As soon as they were gone, Dakota's attention returned fully to Emma. He lifted her carefully in his arms, cradling her against his chest as he carried her to his horse. "Hold on, Emma," he murmured, his voice gentle now, almost tender. "I will take care of you. I promise." Emma tried to speak, but the pain and shock were overwhelming. She felt herself drifting, her consciousness fading in and out as Dakota rode hard back to the camp, shouting orders to his warriors as they went. When they arrived, the entire camp erupted into activity. Dakota carried Emma directly to his wickiup, laying her down gently on his own sleeping furs. Nalnish, the elder who had been so disapproving of Emma's presence, came quickly with her medicine bag. Despite her previous hostility, the old woman's face was now focused and professional as she examined Emma's wound. She spoke rapidly to Dakota in Apache, her gnarled hands working efficiently to clean and dress the bullet graze. Emma bit down on a piece of leather to keep from crying out, tears streaming down her face from the pain. Through it all, Dakota knelt beside her, holding her free hand in both of his thumb stroking her knuckles in a gesture of comfort that seemed unconscious on his part. "The bullet did not go deep," Nalnish said finally in halting English, addressing Emma directly for the first time. "You will heal, but you must rest. Let the wound close properly." The old woman's eyes held a new respect as she looked at Emma. "You took bullet meant for our warrior. You saved his life. This is not forgotten." Over the next several days, Emma recovered in Dakota's wickiup. He barely left her side, bringing her food, changing her bandages with surprising gentleness, sitting with her through the nights when fever made her restless and delirious. During one such night, Emma woke to find Dakota bathing her forehead with cool water, his face etched with worry. "You should sleep," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I cannot," he replied quietly. "Every time I close my eyes, I see that moment. I see the rifle aimed at me, see you throw yourself in front of it. No one has ever—" He paused, struggling with the words. "Why did you do it, Emma? Why would you risk your life for mine?" Emma looked into his eyes, seeing her own truth reflected there. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being about keeping peace between our peoples. It became about you, about not wanting to see you hurt, about— She hesitated, then continued softly, "about caring for you in a way I never expected to care for anyone." Dakota's breath caught. For a long moment he said nothing, his dark eyes searching her face as if trying to determine whether her words were real or some fever-induced fantasy. Then slowly, carefully so as not to jar her injured shoulder, he leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers, a gesture of intimacy and connection in Apache culture. "I fought against this feeling," he whispered. "You are everything I was taught to hate, everything I swore to oppose. But you are also brave and kind and true. You see me not as a savage, not as a threat, but as a man. And I—" He pulled back slightly to look into her eyes. "I see you not as a white woman, not as an enemy, but as someone precious, someone I would protect with my life, just as you protected mine." Emma's heart soared despite the pain in her shoulder. She reached up with her good hand to touch his face, feeling the warmth of his skin, the strong line of his jaw. "What do we do now, Dakota? Our peoples are still at war. Even if we feel this way about each other, how can it ever work?" "I do not have all the answers," Dakota admitted. "But I know that what we feel is real. And I know that you have already proven something I thought impossible, that there can be trust between Apache and white. If we can find that trust, perhaps others can too." As Emma healed, the dynamic in the camp shifted dramatically. Word had spread about how she had taken a bullet to protect Dakota, and the Apache people began to see her in a completely different light. Women who had once shunned her now brought her gifts, woven blankets, beautifully crafted pottery, food prepared with care. Children who had thrown rocks in her direction now approached shyly, curious about the white woman who had proven herself brave. Ayana visited frequently, her friendship with Emma deepening. One afternoon, as they sat together outside Dakota's wickiup, the young Apache woman smiled knowingly. "You love him," she said simply. "I see it in your eyes when you look at him, and he loves you. The great warrior Dakota, who swore never to trust white people, has lost his heart to you." Emma felt her cheeks flush. "Is it that obvious?" "To everyone," Ayana laughed. But no one is angry. You earned respect. You earned trust. You earned place here. She grew more serious. But Emma, you know this will not be easy path. Many white people will not accept. Many Apache will question. Love is not always enough. Maybe not, Emma agreed. But it's a start. And right now, a start is more than we had before. 3 weeks after the shooting, a delegation from Copper Ridge arrived at the Apache camp, led by James Crawford and several other settlers. They came under a white flag, their faces nervous but determined. Dakota met them at the edge of the camp, his warriors flanking him with Emma standing at his side. We heard what happened, Crawford said, looking at Emma with a mixture of relief and amazement. Jack Sutter came back through town, drunk and boasting about shooting at Indians. Some of the men beat the whole story out of him. How you tried to stop them, how you took a bullet. We ran them out of the territory, Miss Hartwell, permanently. And we wanted to come here to apologize, and to assure Dakota and his people that we remain committed to peace. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She looked up at Dakota, who was watching the settlers carefully, his expression guarded, but not hostile. What do you say? She asked him softly. Can you accept their apology? Can we build on this? Dakota was silent for a long moment. Then he stepped forward, and to everyone's surprise, he extended his hand to Crawford, a gesture of peace in the white man's tradition. My people have a saying, Dakota said. It is not the first step that is hardest, but the second, and the third, and all the steps that come after. Peace is not one moment. It is many moments, many choices, every day. Are your people willing to make those choices? Crawford grasped Dakota's hand firmly. We are, I swear it. We want peace. We want to live as neighbors, not enemies. Over the following weeks, a remarkable transformation took place. Delegations traveled between Copper Ridge and the Apache camp regularly. Trade began, the Apache offering beautifully crafted goods, knowledge of the land, and hunting skills, while the settlers provided tools, seeds, and other supplies. Misunderstandings still occurred. Tension still flared occasionally, but now there was a framework for resolving conflicts peacefully, and both sides committed to making it work. Throughout all of this, Emma remained with Dakota. As her shoulder healed completely, she found herself fully integrated into Apache life, learning their language, their customs, their ways. But she also served as a bridge, helping her people understand Apache culture, translating not just words but meanings and intentions. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and red across the desert sky, Dakota took Emma's hand and led her away from the camp to a high place overlooking the valley. The land stretched out before them in all its harsh, beautiful glory. I need to ask you something, Dakota said, turning to face her. In the fading light, he looked like something carved from the rock formations around them. Strong, enduring, magnificent. I know this life is not what you were born to. I know it is hard, that you have given up much to be here. If you wish to return to your people, to live among whites again, I would understand. I would not hold you here against your will. Emma felt her heart clench. Is that what you want? For me to leave? No, Dakota said fiercely, pulling her closer to him. What I want is for you to stay with me always. What I want is to wake beside you every morning and sleep beside you every night. What I want is to build a life with you, to face whatever comes together. But I will not ask you to sacrifice everything for me unless I know it is truly what you want. Emma reached up to cup his face with both hands, looking deep into his eyes. Dakota, I already told you once, this stopped being about sacrifice a long time ago. Being with you, being here, this is where I choose to be. Not because I have to, but because there is nowhere else I want to be. You are my home now. Dakota's arms came around her, holding her close but carefully, always mindful of her still healing shoulder. Then stay with me, Emma Hartwell. Be my wife in the eyes of my people and yours. Help me continue building this peace between our worlds. Let us prove that love can bridge even the widest divide. Yes, Emma whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. Yes to all of it, forever, yes. They married in a ceremony that blended both Apache and settler traditions, witnessed by people from both communities. Nalnish performed the Apache rituals, blessing their union and welcoming Emma officially into the tribe. Crawford, in his capacity as the closest thing Copper Ridge had to an official, performed a simple civil ceremony. It was unusual, unprecedented, and absolutely perfect. As Emma stood beside Dakota, surrounded by people from both worlds who had once been enemies but were now working toward being friends, she thought about that day in Copper Ridge when she had stepped forward and asked a feared Apache warrior to trust her. He had laughed at her then, unable to imagine such a thing. But she had been right. Trust had to start somewhere. Love had to start somewhere. Peace had to start somewhere. And it had started with a poor country girl and a warrior who had learned to see past hatred to the possibility of something better. The months that followed were not always easy. There were setbacks, disagreements, moments when old prejudices threatened to undo all the progress that had been made. But whenever such moments arose, people would remember Emma and Dakota, the impossible couple whose love had sparked a transformation. They would remember that if these two could find common ground, surely others could as well. Emma learned to live fully as an Apache woman while never forgetting her roots. She became a teacher to both communities, sharing knowledge and fostering understanding. Dakota, for his part, became a leader not just of warriors, but of peace, using his strength and courage to protect the fragile alliance between peoples. On a warm spring evening, a year after their marriage, Emma and Dakota sat together outside their wickiup, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Emma's hand rested on her swollen belly, where their child grew, a child who would belong to both worlds, who would be a living symbol of what was possible when people chose love over hate, trust over fear. "Do you ever regret it?" Dakota asked quietly, his hand covering hers. "Stepping forward that day? Offering yourself to save people who had so little?" Emma smiled, leaning her head against his strong shoulder. "Not for a single moment. That day, I was just a poor country girl asking a feared warrior to trust me. I had no idea it would lead to all of this. To you, to us, to a future I never dared to dream of. But I would do it again in a heartbeat, because every step, every risk, every moment of fear led me exactly where I was meant to be." Dakota pressed a kiss to her forehead, then to her lips, gentle and full of promise. "Then we are both blessed beyond measure. You trusted me when trust seemed impossible. And in doing so, you taught me that the bravest thing a warrior can do is not to fight, but to open his heart and choose love." As the stars wheeled overhead and the desert night sang its ancient song around them, Emma and Dakota held each other close, their love a beacon of hope in a world that desperately needed it. They had proven that even the deepest divides could be crossed, that even the most unlikely love could flourish and grow strong. And in the years to come, their story would be told and retold. The tale of how a feared Apache warrior had laughed when a poor country girl said, "You must trust me," and how that trust had changed everything, creating ripples of peace that spread far beyond anything either of them could have imagined. Their love became legend, their courage inspired generations, and the bridge they built between two worlds stood strong, a testament to the power of trust, the strength of love, and the endless possibilities that emerge when we dare to see the humanity in those we once called enemies.